Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock p.m. and we will call the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education meeting to order. First up is our Pledge of Allegiance. You could all please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, we have approval of our agenda. If I can have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move that.
Move it from Mark. A second, please. Support. Support from Dawn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, agenda's approved. First up is our board recognition.
So we are extremely excited to recognize our, I don't want to steal too much, our undefeated Division I softball team. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Glass to say a few words, and turn over to the coach and recognize the ladies that are able to be here tonight. Mr. Glass?
Yeah, so it's exciting, obviously, to win a state championship in anything, but to go undefeated is quite an accomplishment. This team is the only team to ever win 42 games and go undefeated and win a state championship in the state of Michigan. So that's pretty special. Tom Brugink, our coach, those that don't know, he's already in the Hall of Fame, but this season put him at 1,998 wins. 1,198. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. You'll probably get there someday. But, no, but I just want to thank the girls that are here. I know you guys have other things going on, and some of you college, different things. One of you cut your time short at the Wake Park today, so. But no, it was an unbelievable season. And I think, Tom, in conversations we've had, one of the most special things about this team was how many different people stepped up in different situations. Two of our pitchers both pitched. One was 18-0. I think the other one was 19-0. So the split between having two really good pitchers, but key things that happened, just again, like 3 home runs in a game, 1 in extra innings to win it. A freshman hitting a triple to lead off the 7th inning to get us to a position where we had a girl come off the bench who hadn't played much at all the entire season, laid down a suicide squeeze to get us that run to tie it up to be able to have a chance to win it. So I'm going to have Tom come up, just kind of introduce the girls, but the ones that are here, there are a bunch that aren't here, but thank you for taking time out of your summer to be here to do this.
Yeah, this was a pretty special season. I mean, I just finished, this was season 43 for me. I've been doing this quite a while. It's still a lot of fun, that's why I keep hanging around as long as they'll let me. But this team this season was tremendous, right from the beginning of the season. We had a couple of girls that played on the team 2 years ago that made it to the semifinals and got beat at Michigan State 2-1. And since that day, they had it on their mind and in their eye to get back there and win it all. And from the beginning of our season this year, you could see it on their faces that this was going to happen this year. Now, but anyway, we thought we had a good chance, we had a good team, but to go 42-0 was probably the most remarkable thing. But along with being 42-0 and state champs, we OK Red champs 2 years in a row. And one of the things that I'm the most proud of with this team is this 2 years in a row, they have been the top academic team in the state. We put that on the shirts too. We thought that was pretty important to have on there. And that's also, we're getting a big banner made to put on the back of the press box, alluding to those 2 academic achievements, along with our state championship signs that will hang back there. But tremendous season, great girls, great families. It's been nothing but fun. And yeah, we're going to try run it back next year is what they always say, right?
Can they all come back next year?
Well, I wish. We've already petitioned the state to get them to be able to come back, but that got shot down.
By spring, then.
Yeah, well.
College is getting on.
So anyway, they are, like Mr. Glass said, they are busy this time of year getting ready to head off to college, a lot of them. And girls working and doing other things. So this is out of our 20 girls that were on the team this year. One of them we just called on the phone and she said, "Oh, I completely forgot." So she's not going to be here. She was planning on it, but that happens.
Well,
So,
I will tell you, it was very fun to celebrate and to watch the girls play. We know that when somebody wins a state title in the spring, it's hard because there's a lot going on with open houses and getting people here right after the win, and it's equally as hard to get them back in the fall because some of you are coming back here in under 2 weeks, but some of you are not coming back here in under 2 weeks. So thanks for being here tonight. And you have almost enough to complete at least a team to play softball. But with this talented team, you could probably play with 7 and still win.
well, 4 of the girls that are here are seniors, so they'll be leaving us. And then the other 3 will be back next year.
All right.
But,
Can we come up and
yep.
go ahead?
Meg Beamer. Congrats.
Thank you.
Morgan Hall.
Congratulations.
Autumn Dennis. Ellie Koopman.
You don't get that until you get that stuff.
Lauren Burkhart.
You're on your off, just relax.
Thank you.
Lauren Lucis. Congrats. And Tessa Heffelbauer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
These are people who know how to organize a picture.
Juniors, we can put them in the athletic office.
Okay. Well, we have a get together coming up.
You're fine, come over and talk.
Congrats, ladies. Nice job.
Thanks.
Thank you. The room got a little empty. All right, next up we have recognition of visitors and hearing of people present, and we do not have anyone who signed up to make public comment tonight. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. You have the proposal for the consent agenda items. We have a motion to approve. A motion from Andrew, second. Second from Greg. Any questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes. Next up, we have human resource items. Ms. Ann Armstrong.
Yes, hello and welcome to another eventful hiring month. As you can see, my favorite showed up tonight. But no, our group of hires tonight is plentiful, but Lily showed up to be recognized, which is great, but hopefully you all will be at the dinner next week, Wednesday, so you can meet all these great, amazing new hires. But let me recommend who we have. First, we have Lily Kempisty. No? Say it. Kempisty. There we go. It's a weird I in there that I just can't handle. So Lily comes to us as a Ferris State grad. She did some subbing in Baldwin Middle School this past spring. She also was a Caledonia student when I think Mr. Creed was a teacher there.
Taught her biology.
There you go. That's awesome. And so we're very excited.
And a biology.
But Lily is a science and English. No, that's a good thing to say though. She is a science and English teacher. I have strong encouragement that she's going to get that NGTC test done so that we can use her in many ways. But what we're going to use her right now and for the near future is as an ELA teacher at Baldwin Street Middle School. So we're very excited to have her. Next, we have Sarah Arundel. She's being recommended for a health and PE at Riley Street Middle School. Sarah has taught at Excel Charter and Byron Center Charter. What we noticed in her interviews was just a great way of teaching health to 7th grade students. Next, Caitlin Crane. Caitlin Crane is a GVSU grad just recently. She is also going to be getting her master's in autistic spectrum disorder, and she becomes highly recommended from that program, but she's going to be a part-time resource teacher at South Elementary School, which is very exciting. Then we have Delaney Overman. Delaney is a 4th grade recommendation at Bauer Elementary. Delaney also is a Grand Valley grad, spent some time early on at Georgetown Elementary, fell in love with our district during that student teaching placement, but then did middle school math in Grand Rapids Public, loved that as well. So she was like, I like the older kids, and so we think 4th grade is going to be fantastic. And the best was we called Delaney to tell her she got the job, and she was at Disney World. So it was truly the happiest place on earth for her at that moment in time. Then we have Elena Monroe. Elena is coming to us as a Grand Valley grad from the east side of the state, grew up on the east side of the state, parent of educators, and her brother is going to be a freshman at Aquinas, and so I said that we're going to make converts to the west side of the state out of her whole family by the time the year is over. Then we have Michelle Walden. Michelle is, and it's going to be Flanagan, right? Yeah, okay. So just know if she just got married, which is very exciting, but we are still know her as Walden. But that's very exciting for her. She is coming to us from Mississippi. She has about 12, 14 years experience as a teacher in Mississippi. And she has been testing like crazy because of the transfer between a Mississippi certificate to a Michigan certificate. And we're so impressed because she's already taken ASD and ECSE, so very impressive. Those aren't easy tests, and she's just like, yep, I'm just trying to get everything done. And she's getting married at the same time, so we're very excited to have Michelle. Jenna Calverley, did I say that right? I should know Jenna's name because she is a current employee of ours as an ECC para. She graduated from Grand Valley in like 2012, and with her teaching degree, took some time out to raise her kids. I think was a parent helper at Allward for a while, got a para position at ECC, and now is going to be a high school science teacher. So we're very excited. She was over the moon when we talked to her. It was like one of those calls that was just so fun. Then we have Jessica Serrell. Jessica is coming to us from East Kentwood School District. She has been a CI categorical teacher for 12 years in Kentwood and is going to be at the 5-6 building in our CI program. She has tremendous knowledge, and we're really excited. We think her and Janae are going to be a dynamic team. And then finally, we have Alex Sakoff. And Alex called me today, and he's like, I'm driving a U-Haul truck right now to move. He's coming from Royal Oak Middle School, and he has taught 4 years there as a English teacher. Is looking forward to coaching, was very excited about our PLCs because Royal Oak is involved in that process too. So we think it's going to be a fantastic fit at Riley. So those are my recommendations for hires. Thank you very much.
All right, so you have the proposal for the human resources items as presented by Ian Armstrong. We have a motion to approve.
So.
Motion from Andrew, second. Support. Dawn, any questions for Ian?
Just a quick clarification. Did you say Lily is for ELA or English or both?
Middle school we call it ELA.
Okay,
Yes,
gotcha.
yes, yeah, English language arts.
Okay.
And I do have a correction though on your sheet. It does say Riley, but it's Baldwin and Alex is Riley.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was a little confused. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, welcome, and we just have
It might be appropriate for a speech, but no.
that. All right, next up, Dr. Vanderjack.
Yeah, just a real quick update. Thanks to our administrative team. We've had 3 busy days of our retreat in this room, learning a lot of content, and they've been just so focused and dedicated to getting our kids in, knowing there's a lot of moving parts. Same thing. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot going on. They're trying to get their buildings ready to go, but they're also here engaged in professional learning and doing that work together as a team. So I just want to appreciate all of them. I'm looking forward to a very productive, amazing school year. We know how busy it gets, but I just appreciate their time and efforts. Thanks to Mrs. Armstrong and the work with hiring the staff. I know she's not quite done, but getting closer, getting very close. The kids will be here in under 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to that opportunity to have the kids here. The staff start on the 19th with professional development or welcome back in the morning on the 19th. The board is invited to attend the welcome back on the 19th in the morning. We've talked about it before. John Gordon will be here to spend about an hour with our staff in a presentation. We're looking forward to that opportunity. So if you'd like to join us, we start at 8 o'clock. We'll go on about 8:30 for about an hour and go from there. And then as Mrs. Armstrong alluded to, next week, Wednesday, while our new teachers will be in professional development on Tuesday and Wednesday, on Wednesday evening, we have dinner at the North Campus cafeteria, starting at 5:30. Hopefully you're able to join us so you get a chance to meet all of our wonderful new staff. So that's it. That's my report.
Any questions for Dr. Vanderjack? All right, next up we have Superintendent Evaluation Rater Reliability Training. And I'm happy to welcome Mr. Mark Dubois from the Michigan Association of School Boards, who will be conducting the training for us. This is going to be our final agenda item. Guests and administrators, you are welcome to leave if you would like to do so.
Or
You may stay. It's totally up to you. We are going to take just a quick break because we're going to rearrange the tables so it's a little bit more conducive for our training.
Thank you. If I can say a few words, Dr. Hooper, while we're beginning.
Absolutely.
Mark, thanks for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. I know the weather's pretty crummy outside anyway, so it's good to be indoors. But so we have talked about this process and the training requirement. We did receive some notification that the training may not be required for us this year. This morning, actually, we heard that. But talking to President Hooper, it's already scheduled. It's good to be here. It's good to go through this regardless at some point. So we will be going through this again at some point, whether it's next year or in 3 years, because the process is you have to go through this every 3 years. So we'll start tonight. I'll turn it over to Mark. He said he will be done within 3 to 4 hours. Is that what I understood? Yep.
Divided by 4?
Maybe. So we are not going to hold you to any timeline other than
by more than that.
we'll let you go. I know I have your presentation here.
Okay. Well, by way of introductions, I'm Mark Dobiash. I'm a retired superintendent. My last position was superintendent of the Allegan Area Educational Service Agency, and I was also the superintendent in Fenville. I retired in 2016 after 39 years, and education was a wonderful career and continues to be. So I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to meet the boards and kind of hear what's going on and keep my hands on things a little bit. That's as much as it's possible. I also do a little human resources work on the side. I work a little bit at Hope College as well. And I want to thank you as board members and staff for the work that you do, because I truly believe that there is no more important work than public education. And I think it's what absolutely keeps the American dream alive. And good people like you stepping up, filling the role, making difficult decisions, having information that you can't share with anybody else, that puts you in a tight spot with your friends and people in the community and that kind of things at times, but you're doing the work that needs to be done, so thank you very much for doing that. Okay, button. So what I'm going to focus on tonight is really what the changes in the law are. There's a lot of information in this I could go through. I could talk about the research behind the tool again. I could talk about the calendar, and I could talk about the process, but the process really hasn't changed very much. The dates on the calendar haven't changed at all that I'm aware of. So with your permission, I'm going to kind of set that to the side. I'm going to skip a lot of preliminary stuff, and I'm really going to tell you what you need to know to meet the criteria under the law now. If that's okay.
Mhm.
So we will be moving through this. And I think that one of the things that's really important to remember in this, and you know this is a developmental process. You get to the evaluation time, whenever it is, and the superintendent should know exactly where he stands by that time anyway, because you've had good, healthy, robust, honest conversations throughout the course of the year. So when you get to the evaluation, you know, it really should be kind of a no-brainer, if you will. And importantly, I think it links the superintendent's work to the district goals. I'm not going to go through all these learning targets today, but we're going to spend a lot of time on that first bullet. And we're going to give you some practice using the instrument in the form of a rater reliability exercise that, again, won't take very, very long, but you'll get a sense of how it works, and you probably already do. I understand that there were some concerns expressed to the legislature by different employee groups that were getting evaluated that felt that people weren't trained in exactly how to use the instruments well, and that was kind of the reason that the law was changed. So really important to know that the board as a whole evaluates the superintendent. Okay, the board as a whole employs one person, and that person, of course, is the superintendent. And it's a requirement that you use a research-based tool, which of course the MASB instrument is, and then you report the results in the Register of Educational Personnel, and you're required to have training on rater reliability. So the law now, you have to evaluate the superintendent annually with certain exceptions. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Now, a major change is there are three rating categories instead of four. If you remember, there used to be ineffective, minimally effective, effective, and highly effective. Now, there are three categories that you can read there: effective, developing, or needing support. Okay, so there's only three categories now. You are required to hold a mid-year progress report meeting, review with the superintendent, and there's some things that you must discuss there that we'll talk about. Major change in the composition of the evaluation. If you remember, the evaluation instrument itself used to be 50%, okay, of the total superintendent evaluation determination. Now it's 65. Student growth used to be 40%. When I think they started this, it was 25%, then it went to 40, and now it's at 20%. Progress towards district goals used to be 10%, now they're 15%. So the change in the composition is pretty significant. Those goals, of course, are defined by your strategic plan and really should be determined by the superintendent and the Board of Education. So it doesn't say that you have to evaluate your superintendent's performance on every one of the goals that might be in your strategic plan. And you could focus his work
in the evaluation of performance goals on a couple of those areas if that was appropriate. It's up to you to decide. Student growth, you have to include multiple rating categories. And you can use state assessment data now, but you don't have to use state assessment data. Student learning objectives are something that's new, and it talks about that in that last bullet there. You could have a group of fifth grade teachers that got together and said, this is one of the things we want in our would be evaluated on. Is our students showing progress on this particular skill or in this particular area. If they had benchmark data to begin with, they had a good research base for doing this and a good reason for it, and they were going to be able to get data at the end to determine that progress. It could go to their principal, who would then take the information to the superintendent or the assistant superintendent for instruction, and that could be a part of the plan. We've been doing something similar like that with special education students for a long time. The use of what assessment data is going to be used is assigned locally now. Okay? You get to make the decision as a Board of Education or as a district of what data is going to be incorporated into that student growth component. But now student growth measures progress over from one point in time to another point in time of a cohort group, like fourth graders to fifth graders, the slide shows. Proficiency is more of a snapshot time how students are doing. So getting back to the student learning objectives, you got to be measurable, long term, in the course of the year, likely, and the teacher or a teacher team would set them for all the kids in the class, all the kids in the fifth grade, all the kids in the building. Mid-year progress report. Okay, this is something that is new. So, mid-year progress report needs to be done every year that your superintendent is evaluated. So if you're not evaluating a superintendent during the year, you do not need to do a mid-year progress report. A mid-year progress report simply has a couple of components. One is it's a progress update on the goals that the superintendent has. Okay, so if the superintendent has 2 or 3 goals, we don't recommend more than 2 or 3 goals. That it would be a report given on those. The second part of it is determining what the goals will be going forward for the remainder of the year. The goals going forward for the remainder of the year do not need to change. They could be the same goal, same goals. So one of the things I passed out to you is a progress report form that you could use, but you don't have to use. You should create your own, but this doesn't meet the requirement. So on the first page, you simply list out the goals that the superintendent's been working on this year. Could be 3 goals, could be 2, could be 1, could be 5, could be whatever you determine. We think less is more. And then simply a statement about the progress on the goals. Okay? I should mention you can go into closed session to do this. And you can go into closed session anytime you want to talk about the superintendent's progress on the goals. Okay? Then that gets signed off on by the board president and the superintendent. And then on the flip side, you articulate the goals to be used for the remainder of the year. Okay, so what are the goals moving forward? If they're the same goals, you just copy them over on that page. And this is a good place to articulate what kind of evidence, if evidence is going to be required to support the progress that's being made, whether the goals are obtained or not. And another very important piece there is that additional training if it's needed. If you're expecting your superintendent to do something that he really doesn't have the full expertise that he needs at that point, you know, how are you gonna make sure he gets that expertise? Okay, you know, what kind of trainings or workshops might be appropriate? And again, this is done not to your superintendent, but with your superintendent, right? He's likely gonna recommend what those goals are. He's likely gonna articulate the evidence that he's gonna be able to share, and he's likely gonna be able to point out the trainings and the help that he needs in that regard. Okay, again, signed off on, submitted. Any questions on that?
Okay, quick question, Mark.
Yep.
On slide 8, you talked about goals, 15% of the tool is based on progress towards goals. You mentioned that those goals were based on superintendent's goals and the goals from the strategic plan. This tool is only the superintendent's goals, though?
Okay, yeah, this tool is the superintendent's goals.
Okay.
And then 15%, I don't want to say, should be the strategic plan goals and this.
Okay.
Okay, it should be, those goals should be tailored around the strategic plan is a part of it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay,
That makes sense.
I would think. So, David, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's right. I mean, you saw our goal, when I did the goal review this summer, it was some were based on strategic plan, others are objectives of the district.
Yes?
Mark, on slide number 9, when should these multiple rating categories be determined? So let's say we're not going to evaluate Dr. Jack this year, and we get to the point that we need to evaluate him. Do we look at these multiple rating categories then in January and we decide what we're going to rate him on?
So typically, there's going to be alignment between those categories and what your teachers and such are rated on. I think it's really important that you know that at the start of the cycle, of the evaluation cycle.
We have traditionally used the teacher metrics for evaluation, which is the same as our administrator metrics for evaluation measurement. Same would be mine. That makes sense.
I think to Bar's point, the goal then would be to have more present clarify in January what those are based on what the current teacher and administrator.
Yeah, so that's the challenge, because my evaluation is on a calendar year and the teachers are on a school year. So traditionally, we don't know the metrics for my evaluation until the second half of my evaluation. I'm not going to say it's out of my control, but it really follows the same system. So if the teachers changes from one year to the next, mine would too, but it'd be 6 months behind.
Or you would look at, like if the teachers establish their goals this year in August, September, you could potentially use those in January, where instead of, you would lag a little bit, because then you have data.
We could. The challenge with lagging is we're looking at, then the data is a year old. So the teacher's data statistically is used from the previous school year because they don't have any data. So technically the teacher's measurement actually falls closer in line with my evaluation cycle than their own. And that's the flaw in the teacher's evaluation system, but that's for another discussion.
And you get a lot of that data, what, the fall of the year now from the previous year?
That's correct. And so for me at least, my evaluation being based, the teacher's evaluation is based on the previous year, but for me, it would be based on my current calendar year. So it still falls in line with mine. I think if we did it, the earlier one, to your point, then it would be farther removed, if that makes sense. But we can definitely talk about that at the beginning.
I think it's good to have a conversation about that at the beginning of the cycle, beginning of the evaluation cycle. And if goals are not being met and you're not happy with the progress towards the goals and that sort of thing, the improvement plan is certainly warranted at that point in time. Putting something maybe a little more firm about the goals and the progress and what's expected, that sort of thing. Rater reliability training. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but that's saying by September 1 this year and every 3 years that you have to undergo rater reliability training. And I suspect 3 years out this is probably going to change, and they're going to see if there's some bugs in the evaluation system and that sort of thing that they will revise, or maybe the legislature will try to help us again and revise it on, decide
Okay,
if
so
it's
Mark-
right.
So Mark, you're saying that, and that's what we're doing right now, rater reliability training, right?
We're good. Yeah, that's an exercise that's coming up here in just a little bit.
Okay, so is that what they decided this morning that we didn't have to have?
So I'm gonna let you speak to that because
So
you're the
this
one that
morning
heard
in
it.
my legal training, I didn't know, I know Dr. Hoover signed up for it, but it's recorded, so she'll get a
Right.
copy of it. I didn't see anybody else that was attending.
That was the one a couple days ago?
No, it was this
Oh,
morning.
this morning, okay.
So this morning, it was a 4-hour welcome back to school legal update provided by MASD. And the very first thing they covered, I was texting Dr. Hoover at probably 9 o'clock this morning, because it started at 8:30. First thing, I was sitting there and I was paying attention, but I was doing some other things, and I kept listening, and then he said it multiple times, that if you are not in a formal evaluation for your superintendent in the current year, the way he reads it, and I think that's exactly what he said, the way I read it, you do not have to go through this then until next year. Because and then he mentioned, some districts will have a turnover in board members, you don't know what's happening to superintendent positions, all of those things. So the clock starts ticking once you go through based on the every 3 years, so you wait till next year.
Okay.
So we chatted this morning via text and said basically, let's just, we already have a plan, we're planning to be here, let's have that training take place tonight. So yes, that's what's referred to.
Okay.
So as far as the training requirements, we have to have training in rater reliability, and we're actually just gonna go through like 3 areas of the rubric and look at that, and I'll give you some criteria, and you can tell me how you would rate an individual superintendent. Also, discussion about what the expectations are that evaluators should look for when assessing. So training on the evaluation process itself, and the calibration exercise is really what we're going to get into in a little bit. And then talk about ongoing support for evaluators. So like, if you do another training down the road after you've gone through and used this instrument, you identify some things that you're struggling with, that would be a good time to let your trainer know before they come in and say, we need some more help in this area and that kind of thing, and maybe some clarity. Am I going too fast or anything? This we doing okay? All right. A new change in the law is a superintendent could be designated as unevaluated. And if they're unevaluated, they could be unevaluated because, one, they didn't work in the district for 60 days during that, 60 work days that year. 2, there's now a thing called an appeal process. So if you make any change to your superintendent's evaluation moving forward, a raise, an extra personal day, anything, you have to put a clause in there or language in there about how your superintendent can appeal the results of the evaluation. Okay, so that's a new thing. So if the superintendent is not happy with the evaluation, they have a right to appeal the outcome of it. And if the body that listens to that appeal decides that those concerns are valid, they throw the evaluation out, superintendent could be designated as unevaluated that year. Another reason would be extenuating circumstances. And as I think about these, I go like to the extreme where something in the district has happened that just requires all your superintendent's time and attention, and they can't get to anything else. A school shooting or something like that, fire that destroys buildings, and something along that area. And I don't know what else. But if it was a situation where the superintendent is just simply not being able to attend to those elements that are outlined in the evaluation instrument, it could be considered unevaluated. If the superintendent is unevaluated, the rating from the previous year carries over. Okay? As long as the superintendent is in the same position as they were previous year. If your superintendent is currently rated highly effective for 3 years in a row, you have a right, you can skip the evaluation this year. You can go every other year. Okay? Moving forward, if the superintendent is evaluated effective 3 years in a row, you can skip a year. And again, remember, if you skip that year, you do not have to do the mid-year progress report. So the rating that would go into the state in the Registry of Educational Personnel would be the rating from the previous year. If a superintendent is rated as developing or needing support, you must put an improvement plan in place. And part of that improvement plan has to include training opportunities to help that superintendent work on the skills to bring them up to where they need to be. Questions? This talks about having that language for the appeal process in there. And of course, you know you have to comply with the Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act and that sort of thing. The research base is, you got this link on your website that takes care of all the research-based requirements that you need. We're going to skip over this because you've been through this before. This is a research-based review that goes into, it was used to determine the evaluation instrument. And so, understanding the instrument, the categories have not changed. You still have the 5 performance categories. Okay, so that's nothing that's new. It's still based on rubrics, which are a set of criteria, descriptors, if you will, for certain behaviors or actions. When I was a superintendent during my 16 years, we didn't have this. My evaluation usually consisted of me going into executive session with the Board of Education. They would tell me all the good things I was doing, and then they would write a one-page summary. And never ever did they tell me I needed to do something different or better or anything like that. And I was a decent superintendent. I was a good superintendent sometimes. I was a great superintendent sometimes. And there were some times where, you know, I could have used a little more direction. So I think one of the great things about this instrument is, you know, that rubric style that gives you those words, gives you those descriptions. My boards of education did not have that. They never had any training on how to evaluate a superintendent. Okay, so none of that was their fault. But it's really great, I think, that we had this. And I would have enjoyed being evaluated on this, says a guy that's retired. So, things that are in red in the evaluation instrument are required by law. All right, so now you see there's only 3 columns as where there used to be 4. There's still performance categories. There's still performance indicators. You know, these numbers here speak to the stuff I skipped over and the research that has gone in. The research base, we having each one of those on there. On the previous evaluation instrument, there were several areas on there in the standards and such that were in red. They had to be done by law. Okay? You had to get community feedback, you had to get staff feedback, you had to get student feedback, you had to work on student attendance. You know, those were all things the superintendent had to be evaluated on. Those things have all gone by the wayside now. Okay, so, you know, while those are all important, they're not a required part of the evaluation. I always found it interesting that in the business and finance area of the evaluation, there wasn't a single red category there that had to be something that had to be evaluated on. So you've got the new evaluation instrument in front of you. I'd like you to just take maybe 4 or 5 minutes and just look through it. It's interesting also to do it side by side. There's some places where I think highly effective has just been wiped off. I think there's some where it's been combined with effective, but and just kind of see what you think about the change in the format. Because you've gone through this once. I'm always curious to hear what boards think about it.
Yeah, just a quick question, maybe for the board also. Are there any new categories? I know there's not, the domains haven't changed, but are there, there's E1 through 9. That was the same before. There's nothing new on there.
That's a good question. I don't really know.
I think that's the same. We don't have, obviously we have the old instrument I can go through. But from what I understand, that the number of categories that I'm evaluated on has not changed. The number and the titles in each category haven't changed. The rubric is what has changed.
That's correct.
So some of them, to your point, the highly effective is just gone.
Mhm.
Other ones, because of the bar for highly effective, it was combined with effective. I don't believe needing support and developing have changed at all.
I'm not sure.
I don't think they have. So I mean, I can go through the document at a later date, but I just, as you go through, if you're looking for something that, oh, that wasn't there before, I think all the categories were there before. It's just the effective category is probably something I would, to Mark's point, maybe focus on a little bit as you're using the document.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, thank you.
Quick question on B, again, this is going back to goals. B2,
Okay.
seeks community/parent input, engages community/parents in goal setting. I just want to make sure we're clear on goal setting as it relates to the strategic plan versus the plan or the goals that.
Yes, that'd be goals for the district, not the superintendent.
Okay.
So leaning more towards your strategic
Yep.
planning goals that are developed with it.
Perfect. So getting feedback from the community in order to set the strategic plan, all that.
Before I see my CIP, it's new.
So my KIP is the new continuous improvement plan for the district.
If you think about district school improvement, the MICAP is what we work on from a building and district school improvement. So you can almost take off the word MICAP and put school improvement, and that would be board members. For us, we know MICAP, but that's not a role.
This hasn't been used. So,
We spent a lot of time today with administrators. Building and district school improvement goals are different than strategic goals that are different.
Mark, who drove these changes?
The changes were driven by the legislature.
Clarify your question, just, do you mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you mean the language changes or the need for change?
The need for a change.
It's a legislative decision.
Okay, so it's all political.
I think some of
And
it
when I say political, I'm not using that in any nefarious way, I'm just saying legislative, political.
There was a major push to address the teacher evaluation system based on how teachers were evaluated and the categories in which they were evaluated, which included the academic progress, which is that 20, 40%,
Right.
15, 10, I mean, all that was part of it. And then to streamline it from 4 to 3 categories.
And that's where
And then when it happened with teachers,
Okay.
it led towards administrators, which led towards superintendents. So that superintendents didn't have 4 and teachers had
Okay.
3, and teachers are on the same thing. The difference with teachers, if they're rated effective, which was highly effective, they can go on a 3-year
Okay.
cycle before they get evaluated, as opposed to everything.
So that answers my question. They weren't really looking at the superintendents per se and saying we need
No.
to change this.
They were the afterthought.
Exactly, okay,
Everything
that
else
makes
happened.
sense then to me, because this doesn't seem like, why would they do this?
In fact, when this all came out with the changes, we kept asking, what about superintendents? We're like, we didn't even think about that.
Okay.
So then they had to come back and say, I guess we do need to
Okay,
address.
so that was an afterthought. Okay.
You know, the idea behind the growth component having such a high percentage, like 40%. I mean, I think the idea was good. I mean, if you could get down to one teacher in one classroom and eliminate all the other factors like who the teacher was the year before and, you know, student attendance and all sorts of things. But that's never really happened or could it be measured, really could be measured effectively. And I was facilitating a strategic plan development a couple of years ago, and I looked at the data in the district for their effectiveness ratings for their teachers and their administrators in the district. And the effective, you know, they were, you know, like in the high 90s or something like that %. And so I wanted to look at the statewide data, and you probably know this, but the statewide data, throw this out as a quiz, what was take a stab at what the effectiveness rating in the state was for teachers, being either effective or highly effective. What percent meant either effective or highly effective?
99.
Spot on. Administrators? What do you think?
Same.
Yeah. So, you know, I think personally, our teachers are superbly trained now compared to when it was when I came out of school and walked up and go, oh my gosh, our principals know so much more than they ever did. They're so much more superbly trained. Our superintendents are so much better trained than ever before. 99%? You know, I'm not so sure about that. So, so after each performance category rubric, there is a place for the board to make comments. And this is typically, this should be a chance for the superintendent to make a comment on there if he wants. And typically, it would be for the board president only to make a comment on it. Okay, again, capturing the consensus of the room. If there were, you know, comments or there was a feeling in the room that should be captured there, not saying you have to write anything there, but it goes back to that one voice thing. Okay, I work with a district where every board member writes a comment on every one of these areas, and that poor superintendent doesn't know what to listen to, who to listen to, and they've really gone to the situation where that guy's got 7 different bosses instead of one boss, which is the whole board.
Okay, so I was trying to process that while you were saying that. So what you are saying then is that it's the role of the board president to gather some consensus about what comments need to be made, and that's the only comment that's listed there, as far as what's sort of the consensus of.
Yes, that's the preferred way of doing it for sure.
But does that mean if we're in closed session, we can't, like,
Give a comment to the superintendent?
yeah,
Oh, of course.
yeah, but okay, as far as the tool goes, it's we agree to what those comments.
Yeah, because this is going into personnel file.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Makes sense.
All right, not going to say anything really about evidence because that hasn't changed. It's just that, you know, we believe strongly in a minimalistic approach to evidence. I work with facilitated evaluations in 2 districts where in one district, the superintendent emailed out 600 and some pages of evidence. And in another district, the superintendent passed out a Bible at the beginning, not an actual Bible, but about 300 pages of evidence that he didn't put together. His poor administrative assistant spent all her time putting it together, you know. And bottom line was nobody read anything. When she told me she was emailing all that out, I was kind of tried to discourage her. She said, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I said, well, you sent it to me, but I'm not going to read it, you know, because your board members aren't going to read it either. So this is the calibration exercise. Okay, so if you would go to performance category A, governance and board relations. And we are looking at A1, possible policy development. And again, in policy development, you see the standards that were used in developing that. And here is what I'm going to read to you what you either see evidence of, or are presented evidence of, or you know to be true about your superintendent. Now, I'm not talking about your superintendent, I'm talking about this hypothetical superintendent, okay? And then I'm going to ask you to tell me what rating you would give. So the evidence provided includes policy involvement is the category. Evidence provided includes attendance at policy committee meetings. He or she is proactive regarding certain new issues that need to be developed in the policy. He or she holds meetings for adjusted and new policies due to law changes. The policy approval process is thorough and timely. He or she reviews the new and adjusted policies with board and administration. So once they're developed, he reviews them. And he disseminates the policies effectively to all staff people. Okay, all staff in the district. So look at the descriptors for policy involvement, and then tell me what rating you would give. Okay, we have 1, 3.
Developing.
Developing, okay. 2. 3. Is that 3? 2. What's missing for making this a 3?
It says development, is actively involved in the development. That's the word development for me. I look at this, they certainly administer them, they're present, but I don't.
Well,
Is
proactive
it
regarding
proactive?
certain new issues to develop in the policies.
So that would be okay to qualify for the development.
Yeah. In my MASP would tell you this is a 3.
That's what I would say. And I understand what Barb's saying about development there, but I think looks like a 3 to Ken. Where would you say the distinction was in your mind?
That I did read the second bullet there, certain new issues.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you want a superintendent that is aware of, cognizant of, and proactive around basically the whole, a lot of things, not around a certain new issue that may pop up, but has the wherewithal to understand, he or she has the wherewithal to understand, wow, there's this legislative change that we could do that. So it's a combination of, I took certain, maybe I'm wrong, it's fine. I took certain to be perhaps a little more specific.
Okay.
And I didn't see the level of proactiveness in here that,
Okay.
quite frankly, I think we're used to here.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I think that raises a good point too. Is that sometimes in the evaluation process, there may be a word or two that isn't met or something along the way. But if you're overall really happy with what's going on, I think that means an awful lot. Okay, that was the first one. Budget reporting. So this is D, I believe.
All right, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Going back to that other one. One of the things that you said is you didn't think it was necessarily a good use of time to print 300 pages out on stuff, okay? I think that goes back to what you just said a couple seconds ago about what do we know about what's going on within our district, okay? I'm not necessarily looking at, I'd like to see all the things that the superintendent thinks contributed to this, but also in my mind, I know the things that are going on that I'm impressed with or not impressed with and things like that. And I think that holds more weight for me. Now, there may be some things that he gives to me that I didn't know that were going on, and I say to myself, okay, you know,
Sure.
I need to make myself better aware of it.
I think what you observe is so important,
Right.
and it's gotta be a high part of the evaluation, a significant part. You know, we'll talk about budget here for a second, and then before I put that slide up there, an example of this would be, you know, like those people that were submitting so much evidence. You know, in one district, she provided, the administration provided to the board budget and actual and cash flow reports and that kind of thing at every board meeting. Well, why copy those in evidence when you're getting them on a regular basis? You know, it's not a good use of somebody's time, I don't think.
Just for clarification on evidence, I do feel that over the course of the year, there are things that I might have sent you, you're like, I totally forgot. So we don't make copies and give you a binder, but we put it in a folder that you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
And you can go back and
And I
reference it.
appreciate
You know?
that, yeah, absolutely.
Makes all the sense.
It's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, so when you talk about pages, I mean, we had well over 3,000
Sure.
pages of documents,
Yeah.
but we didn't print them and give you
Another
a
copy.
bunch of, yes, the copy that you already received once.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, D2 budget reports. All right, this one will be a little easier, I think. So there's no regular budget reporting at the board level. So there's no budget reports given at meetings. Budget to actual reports are not readily available. The audit has issues and management concerns. And this is my favorite one. When the board asks the superintendent about the finances, he's unsure of the status. So how would you rate?
8 support. This is D2, correct?
Yes.
Is there a less than one?
I hear that all the time. Okay, so now we're back to, this is C, I believe, staff relations. And this would be staff input, so it'll be the very first one. So the superintendent sends out a perception survey to all the staff, but the results are not consistently utilized. Okay? Sometimes they're utilized, sometimes they're not. Okay? Staff meetings are held on a regular basis. The curriculum review process includes staff members, but their ideas are utilized inconsistently again. What do you think?
This is C1.
Yes.
I'd say that will be.
Two?
This is what I'd say between 2 and 3, because obviously, according to the rubric, the person in, if it was effective, actively sought staff input and engaged the staff. They just may not have incorporated their choices. So those are sometimes, and I know we've struggled with that along the way, where it's like either words added or words not included give a different impression to each of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So generally, we would consider that to be a 2, but you know, it's certainly justified. It's okay to go a half score rather than if you go 2.5. So that ends the rater reliability training and the calibration exercise. We are into the evaluation cycle, which has not changed at all. So I'm going to just flip through here. I think this is important, though. A couple things here. At the beginning of the evaluation cycle, you know, one thing before I forget to mention this. And I know this is not going to be an issue here, but the law clearly says that board members need to be trained before they can evaluate the superintendent. And that is not always necessarily the case in district within the game start.
And that's nothing to do.
That's not necessarily the case in every district. And if I'm a superintendent and my evaluation is less than I think it should be, and I was evaluated by a board member who even sat in the room and made comments to my evaluation, and I didn't like it, I would appeal that, and I think that would be grounds for winning it, just by not having a board member that's trained. So making sure these things are in place before the playing, at the beginning of the playing cycle. And we're gonna just go read through this real quick, because this, again, has not changed. Again, use the consensus model for completing the evaluation. This is the one I want to get through, especially if you're bringing new board members on. And if you're having the beginning of the evaluation cycles in January, I think it's this really sound to have these things on hand and to kind of maybe review them with the whole board, or maybe the board president, the superintendent meets with the new board members coming on and making sure they have this information, but so they know what the planning calendar is as it relates to evaluation. They see a copy of the instrument and, you know, hey, you gotta get trained and here's some dates. You can take the training online. So then a copy of superintendent goals are available and certainly the strategic plan. What the assessment model is that teachers are using in the district. Copy of the superintendent's contract. Any relevant board policies. And a job description, if you have one, typical districts don't. Usually it's what's in the old policy that's used. But, you know, having those at the beginning just kind of refocuses everybody. So we are not going to go through this. And we're at the end.
You were magnificent.
Thank you.
You know, I think that we did go through all of those this last year. We had every one of those points that you had up there. There were a couple of us who were on the board who hadn't gone through that training before. We went through the training in October, the online training. And so I think we were pretty well prepared to be able to do that and go through the whole thing last year.
Good.
So just for clarification, on slide 74, we still do the informal check-ins. Like there's an informal check-in in April, you still do your progress report review?
Yes. And there's nothing set in stone that has to be on those dates, of course.
Right, we just don't have to do the formal, this
Yeah.
paperwork.
Yep.
Unless we evaluate them.
Yeah.
Okay, but we still do the informal.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, you know, it's up to you, of course, but I think it's good practice.
We did it in June
Yeah,
this year. I think it's a good idea, halfway through the year, to talk about
I agree,
where we are as a district and goals.
I agree.
See, if something changes, so none of us are prepared for it. Like that, so, okay, now, this is what we had, but now we know that this is.
And I just remembered something very important. And I'm glad I did. But that is, I need to circulate this among board members to ask you to check your information on here, make sure it's correct, and then initial it. And that will also get you attendance at the meeting and credit to MASB.
Are there any questions? Did a nice job putting the highlights.
Thank you. Thank you. I am here to serve if I can ever be of service to the district. I enjoy getting out and working and doing other things, and our paths will probably cross at the conference sometime. Questions? Good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Just in closing, I will say thanks for coming to do this. Thanks for being here. We did talk about, I know one of our board members isn't here, but there's not my person that came through the reliability
is different when you're online versus going through it, your perception of that. But I think the board does a nice job having those conversations about how you read something, how somebody else might, trying to navigate what that looks like, to find consensus amongst the board. We witnessed that when I think Jay was with us last time.
Since we're working on that our way around, should we do a roundtable? Start with you.
Everything under the fire illegal, so.
Kids in.
Yes. I'm going to sit Mr. Chansky for a moment since he's looking.
Well said, thanks.
I'm a former high school softball coach, and that was intimidating.
So I will tell you this, I know this is not part of the meeting, but, so in the quarterfinal game, they were playing Midland, and we were down 3 to, so Megan Beamer, the first girl director, hit a home run to lead off the game, we're all running up, so they were getting down 3 to 1, and then she gets a home run in the 8th to make it 3 to 2, and then the whole bunt situation with Tessa Huffenbauer, which was the last one, the whole squeeze bunt by a girl that has batted 4 times all year, got her in to score to go to extra innings, and then Megan Beamer hit another home run in the first or second extra inning to win the game.
She had 3 home runs?
She has 3 home runs, and she's had 5 all year, she had 3 in that game. And then they go into the semifinal game against Mercy, Mercy, who had not lost at all. They've given up on average 0.9 runs per game, and we mercy. We beat them 10-0 in 5 innings, and nobody expected that.
They got a D1 pitcher?
They do. She's going to Alabama, and we beat them 10-0, and then we played in the finals, and we won 5-0. So the last 2 games were anticlimactic. Sorry.
That's
the
the
quarterfinals were epic. So, anyway.
Mr. Chansky, anything for roundtable?
Nope, I'm all set.
All right, well, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that.
Motion from Mark, second. Support. From Dawn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.